Thank you for joining The Final Takeaway, which is quickly becoming a trusted platform here on YouTube for in-depth coverage of breaking and trending stories from Guyana, the Caribbean, and even the US. Let's get right to it. According to breaking news reaching us last evening, a Florida grand jury has indicted Guyana's opposition leader and prominent Guyanese businessman Azruddin Mohamed for multiple alleged crimes. Azruddin's father, Nazar Mohamed, has also been indicted alongside his son on allegations of similar crimes. The grand jury serving the U.S. Southern Florida District voted to indict the men on charges associated with wire and mail fraud and money laundering, mainly in connection with their gold mining and export business, which operated out of Guyana. Both men ran the gold business, which exported gold to or through places like the United States, Europe, and the Middle East. The shocking news of the indictment follows several years of extensive investigation by the United States into the alleged criminal dealings of the Mohameds, father and son, and their associated businesses, Mohamed Enterprise and Hadi's World. Smuggling anything into or through the United States is an automatic violation of U.S. laws. We're going to gloss over the details of the charges in the indictment, which cover both Azruddin and his dad. Next, we'll revisit the U.S. sanctions placed on the Mohameds and some other related matters. So stick around to the end to get the entire scoop on this story. First, let's talk about what an indictment really is. Generally speaking, an indictment is when a jurisdiction or a court formally accuses or charges someone with a crime. In this instance, the individuals are Azruddin Mohamed and his father, Nazar Mohamed. Basically, the prosecutor would present evidence to a secret panel of citizens called a grand jury. They will then study the evidence to determine if there is, quote, probable cause or strong enough evidence showing an individual may have committed the alleged crime. Now let's turn our attention to the tax evasion fraud charge. In the case of the Mohameds, according to the indictment or official document that lays out the charges, the U.S. is accusing both men of conspiring with each other and with other named and unnamed persons to enrich themselves. They're accused of doing so by intentionally and knowingly defrauding the Guyana government of taxes and duties owed to the said government for gold exports. These include gold shipments exported from Guyana through Miami. The indictment alleges that the men used their businesses, mainly Mohamed Enterprise, to conduct the fraudulent transactions. According to court records, the fraudulent concerted actions by Azruddin and his dad resulted in a loss of $50 million in taxes and royalties to the Guyana government. The men were allegedly successful at defrauding their government and enriching themselves largely by underweighing and undervaluing gold exports. This led to a fraudulent declaration of value. Now let's turn our attention to the money laundering charges. The Florida justice system's indictment also alleges that the men engaged in money laundering, which is also illegal, for the purpose of carrying out or funding illegal activities. We're not done. Indictment records also include or make reference to Azruddin Mohamed's infamous Lamborghini, which is currently the subject of a fraud case brought against him by the Guyana Revenue Authority, or the GRA. Mohamed underdeclared the value of the car by, guess how much? By $604,700. After falsely declaring the value of the car as being only $75,300. All of the alleged activities have been carried out between 2017 and 2024, right up to when both Azruddin and Nazar were sanctioned by the United States. As far as conviction and penalties, we understand a guilty conviction could result in the Mohameds spending years behind bars in a U.S. prison. Now, let's turn our attention to the indictment and its links to the 2024 sanctions. According to reports, some, if not all, of the charges are linked to the sanctions, which were instituted against the men by the United States Department of Treasury, Office of Foreign Assets Control, or OFAC. Let's take you back to 2024. On June 11 of that year, OFAC formally announced it had placed both the father and son Mohameds under sanctions for a slew of alleged criminal activities. These include money laundering, gold smuggling, tax fraud, and public corruption. The sanction announcement, which was published online, also referred to drug trafficking. Their businesses, Mohamed Enterprise, which later began doing business as Confidential Cambio, Hadi's World, and Mohamed Racing Team, were also blacklisted by the U.S. As a result of the sanctions, U.S. law enforcement officials seized several of the Mohameds' properties located in the United States. And let's not forget that a former Guyanese government official, a permanent secretary to be precise, named May Thomas, was also sanctioned alongside the Mohameds for allegedly facilitating the Mohameds' alleged fraud scheme. Guys, it's been a year, a little over a year since the U.S. sanctions. And just when you may have thought the U.S. forgot about this case, here we are. In fact, the U.S. did promise to pull out all the stops to go after the Mohameds and to make them accountable for the alleged crimes. In fact, in the 2024 sanctioned publication, Undersecretary of the Treasury for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, Brian Nelson, disclosed that the U.S. took action in keeping with its, quote, commitment to holding accountable those who seek to exploit Guyana's underdeveloped gold sector for personal gain, further promising that, quote, Treasury, in close coordination with our partners in the U.S. law enforcement, will continue to take action to safeguard the United States financial system from abuse by corrupt actors, end quote. The agency noted that the actions against the Mohameds were conducted in coordination with Homeland Security Investigations, New York Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, the OCD-ETF, Strike Force, Diplomatic Security Service, Customs and Border Protection, Office of Intelligence New York Operations, and the Federal Bureau of Investigations Miami Field Office, with assistance from HSI Miami, CPB Miami, and New York Field Offices, New York City Police Department Intelligence Bureau, and the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA. So, a long list of agencies and institutions, including law enforcement institutions, were tracking and investigating the Mohameds before they were sanctioned, and their investigation in its totality is probably what led to the indictment we're talking about today, which are charges, official charges, being brought against the Mohameds. So, as you can see, this was a comprehensive investigation. Based on reports, the U.S. were investigating the Mohameds for at least 2 years before announcing the sanctions. Now let's quickly talk about the GRA tax fraud case and its link to the sanctions and potentially this indictment. The tax evasion case brought by the Guyana Revenue Authority against Azruddin Mohamed in 2025 for import duty violation and tax fraud is alleged to have stemmed from the U.S. sanctions. The matter is currently pending in a Guyanese court. Despite all of these major criminal allegations and court cases, Guyanese still voted in record numbers for Azruddin Mohamed in the country's September 1, 2025 elections. Their massive support led to him winning the position of opposition leader of the nation. It remains to be seen what will come of Azruddin Mohamed's leadership if he's convicted by a U.S. court. So, with all this being said, what's next for the Mohameds? This is a legal process. It will take time. We're not sure if there are dates set for trial as yet. As you can see, the United States mean business. This court case is not likely to be washed away. These men are likely going to face the courts. But in the meantime, we'll have to wait and see how this all plays out. Just so you know, we're going to be following the case and we will do our best to keep you in the loop. You're welcome to subscribe and activate notifications for this channel to get instant updates on all of the stories you're following. Thank you so much for your support. Here's what's coming up next.